So there's a great quote I like to use that says, the sooner you let go of what they did, the faster you can start to receive what God is doing. And this is in reference to the fact that a lot of times people have still not detached themselves from their past or from different things in their past that is impeding them in how they move forward and being able to receive what's truly best for them, right? And so this happens a lot when it comes to dating and relationships. There's tons of people who have not fully healed from or released how they felt about an ex. And despite not being over that ex, are jumping into a new relationship. Not maliciously, not maliciously, okay, let's be clear, not maliciously, but just, some people have the mentality the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, which I completely disagree with, do not suggest at all, right? Or just maybe they think they're over it, so they move forward. Whatever the case may be, they end up in a new relationship, and that part of their life has not been resolved. And now the new partner has to deal with what may be not the backlash, but the symptoms, right? And the issues that arise from someone who has not gotten over their ex. So I had a young woman who recently DM'd me and asked me the question, how do you know when a man is over his ex? And I said, okay, you know what? Let me do this video. Let me make this clear to you. So I'm going to lay out to you how to know he's over the ex. However, I want to again, or kind of state to you in this moment, sometimes the man really genuinely believes he's over his ex, even though he isn't. And that's why I want to make sure I said he's not maliciously moving into a new relationship. Some just have not or do not understand how to properly resolve things, all right? And they may not realize it or become aware of the problem until they are triggered or something happens in the new relationship or in their life that shows them you're not over it. And even then, some are going to be in denial of it and be like, no, I'm fine, I'm good, even though they're not, right? So just be mindful of that. But let's break down some of these signs. So a big sign that he's over his ex is that he is not in any way triggered about any conversations or mention of her, okay? So this kind of reminds me of how there's a lot of people out there who say, don't talk about your ex on a first date, or don't even ask a person about an ex on their first date or early in the dating process. And to me, though I understand the logic behind that, I always felt like, listen, the problem isn't having discussions about an ex or a previous relationship. The issue is what starts to come out in that discussion, all right? Like, I think there are plenty of people who have had those talks, and because they were both truly past those things, it only brought more enlightenment to each other and a better understanding of each other, right? By sharing those stories and what happened before. But for many, it derailed things because it showed something's not right. And so when we talk about being triggered about the conversation or the mention of that ex, it's like, okay, does he start to get upset, frustrated, right? Now, this kind of hit my spirit, so I have to say this. You can't attack him about his ex, and then if he gets frustrated and mad, you're like, oh, you're being triggered, you're acting funny. It's like, no. He might be being triggered because you're attacking him, okay? So let's be mindful that as long as you're not coming at him in a negative way, then we can apply the logic of if he is acting triggered to just discussing it, then yes, that's probably a sign something is wrong. Now, let me also make clear, when we say not over the ex, I'm including both the situations where they still have feelings, as in maybe even still have a desire to be with their ex, or they have not properly healed from it. So they may not want to be with their ex, but they have not resolved the negative energy from that experience. And that's still a problem, or a problem that has to be addressed, because that negative energy is more than likely going to show up in the new relationship, okay? So just do not assume it just automatically means he wants to be with her, okay? But he may still feel some kind of way about how things ended. Maybe he was cheated on, or maybe he messed up and he still feels guilty. There's all kinds of possibilities. But the point here is, it's if he can speak on about it calmly, with no problem, answer questions, that is a great sign he is at peace with the situation. Which is another reason why I think at least at some point, it might be wise to have discussions about previous relationships so that you can see if anything is lingering. Because one of the reasons why people never discover that their partner is still not over their ex, or by the time they discovered it is so deep in the relationship, is because they never talked about it. It's because they stayed away from that topic altogether. And so they were never able to test this theory of, is he triggered by it in any kind of way? All right. So if he's not triggered, if he can have the discussion, if he can answer without any problems, that's a great sign that he is over his ex. All right. So another great sign that a man is over his ex is that he's actually open to and willing to commit. All right. So what happens in a lot of situations, not every, but a lot, is you'll have a man, he's not over his ex, and there's still a part of him, if not all of him, who would love to be back with her. But right now, maybe that opportunity isn't presenting itself. There's something that's in the way, and he's still holding out for hope. And in holding out for hope, he may still date other women, right? He may still get romantically involved with someone else, but he's not going to be willing to commit to that woman when he's trying to leave the door open for his ex, okay? Now, again, does that mean anytime a man does not want to commit or is not open to commitment is because he's leaving the door open for his ex? No. But does it happen because of that as well? Absolutely. So when a man is willing to commit, right, it is a great sign that he has moved on. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, is it 100%? No. Can there still be lingering issues? Absolutely. There's been plenty of people who were still not over their ex and fully committed to somebody else, or at least attempted to, right? But again, we're going by what is a good sign, something that you can look at and use to help evaluate in these situations. So that's why, again, it's important to have discussions and make sure that this man is on the same page as you, and as far as how he would like to move this relationship along. All right. Now, I was going to mention this later, but I feel like I have to talk about it now. So one of the scenarios I see happen in this is, let's say the ex is still lingering around somewhere, right? And he still communicates with the ex. And so you're trying to be with him, you're dating him, but you're sensing or seeing something is off here. And let's say you either start to believe he has feelings for her, or maybe she starts talking to you disrespectfully, or starts sending you messages, or stalking your IG, or social media, whatever the case may be. What I'm getting at here is, there's a lot of situations that I've seen where it turns into now the new woman wanting to try to hold on to the man who she knows still is holding on to or hasn't gotten over the ex, but she has become, her mind has gone into a competition with the ex, all right? And so now it becomes I'm not going to let him choose her over me, or you take it personal, not you, but the woman, which could be you, takes it personal that if I don't get him and lose him to her, that somehow that's a reflection of me, like I'm not good enough, or what's wrong with me. Now, of course, there's some of you who's like, hell no, I'm not doing all that. Great. Great for you. But there's a lot of women who, unfortunately, that happens to, right? And I want to stress that do not let yourself get into a battle with some other woman. Do not lose focus on evaluating if this guy is truly best for you. Because whether he's over his ex or not, if he's not best for you, then that's all that matters. You don't need to be dealing with him regardless. But don't let that suck you in to where now you're holding on for all the wrong reasons and you have this very unhealthy attachment. Also, even if ultimately he continues to choose the ex or get back with the ex, please understand that that's not an automatic reflection of that woman is better than you, right? I really need a lot of women to understand this, because I've done other videos about like why a man chooses the other woman over you, or whatever the case may be. And I see too many women internalize when something like this happens, rather than realize that sometimes he's choosing the other woman because, one, y'all just not a good fit together. It ain't about she's better, you're just not a good fit together. Two, it may be as simple as, let's just say it's a situation where he has real feelings for you, but yet he's still dealing with this ex. For some, being with you requires him to be better than he is, requires him to step up, requires him to address issues, right? It holds him to a higher standard, and especially if he has actual feelings for you. With this other woman, she lets him be the mess that he is, and he doesn't have to change anything. Now, don't think I'm saying for you to go let him be the mess that he is. I'm just telling you that in that scenario, that man may choose the easier path, but it's not the better path, okay? So it doesn't mean that woman is better than you, but that might be easier to deal with, because if he has not healed from whatever various things in his life, that can impact his ability to embrace what is best for him, what is good, who is the better woman, whatever the case may be, right? And of course, there's various other reasons why that might be at play, but I just want to make sure you understand that you don't get into a battle with the other woman, and that you don't internalize it as if something is wrong with you if he still keeps messing around or holding on to this ex. Now, before I get to the next point, I just want to give you the opportunity to get my new coaching course called How to Choose a Man, all right? It is a course designed, it has 5 videos, and it's designed to help you better vet the men that you are dealing with or that you come across, so that you don't get caught up dealing with the wrong one. Now, I know people say he who finds a wife finds a good thing, which is true, right? But this isn't about you having to go pursue or chase, because you know I don't believe in that. At least the chasing part I don't believe in, or the pursuing. Anyways, the point is to help you have a better selection process and to be able to get the guys who aren't for you out the way as quickly as possible, and to be able to better recognize and receive the guy who is. So click the link in the description or in the comments section and get and join the program, How to Choose a Man. Now, moving on. Another great sign that he is over his ex is that he has removed any and all contact with her, okay? Now, this one, I'm gonna be honest with you, it is tricky, right? Because I do believe this is a very polarizing, or it's very divided as far as how people feel about remaining in any kind of contact with your ex. So let's use the most common contact that remains for people, social media, okay? And there's gonna be some people who say, well, listen, yeah, that's my ex, but we don't hate each other. We don't have any problems, so I'm not gonna unfollow them, right? And I'm not gonna tell them to unfollow me. And it's a reasonable thing. Like, I understand someone who makes that case. I do think there are people who can truly be over their ex, right? And still keep that level of contact and not allow it to become a problem. However, I think this is one of those points where you don't want to look at it by itself. You want to look at it in addition to other things. So if this is the only thing, so if they're checking off all the boxes on this list I'm giving you that shows that they're over their ex, and the only thing they have is they're still following each other, right? I'd be willing to give more benefit of the doubt. If they have failed on some of these other signs, plus we have the social media or any kind of contact issue, Now that raises more red flags. You understand what I'm saying? So I think you have to look at the whole picture in this regard. But I also think that depending on the situation, the scenario, as far as like what happened between them, things of that nature, and as well as the level of interaction, because it's one thing to say, oh, we still follow each other, right? And we're amicable, we don't have any problems, it's all good, fully respect for each other's new path in life. But if we're talking, we're still DMing each other, sending each other reels and different stuff and whatever the case may be, that to me, again, is more cause for concern. And here's the thing, regardless of how I may feel about it, someone else may feel about it, they may feel about it, you have to be honest about how you feel about it. You have to be honest about what you are comfortable with in regards to contact with an ex, all right? Again, some people take it to much higher extremes. I've seen situations where, I know of one situation where a woman was dating a man, and his three female, what he said are his three female friends, were all exes, okay? Were all exes. And he was like, he ain't getting rid of any of them. And he was regularly interacting with all three of these women. And again, even though for some, that alone is enough to say, oh, hell no, that's not gonna work, he's done, he's a fool, whatever the case may be. Of course, I got to hear even more of the story, and just the overall story. He was not treating her well. There was just so much more that was wrong with the relationship. So to me, it was clear as day that the three exes as friends was an extension or an additional symptom of this was not the man for her, all right? So there has to be discussions about it. I think this is one of those things where you don't want to assume, you don't want to view it as, oh, well, like basically if you're dating a guy or in a relationship with him, and then you find out that he and his ex still follow each other, don't just jump to a negative conclusion. Have a discussion about it. See how they feel about it. I think this is something that maybe even be good to discuss early on in the dating process so that we understand what the boundaries are with each other and what we find acceptable and appropriate and things of that nature. Because the other thing is this, sometimes it is innocent at the moment, but it leaves the door for things to get messy later as far as continuing that contact, right? And I've even seen, I know of situations where women were dating men and the man found out, oh, that's a guy you used to mess with, and would tell them that they need to unfollow the guy. And in some cases, the women would oblige and they would unfollow the guy. And to me, I don't see anything wrong with that either. You know what I'm saying? If people should be willing to take necessary steps to bring peace to their current relationship. And I do not think that an ex is worth creating headache in your new relationship. And if you think they are, then you're gonna make me and many other people question, is something still lingering there? Why would you allow this to be a point of tension in your new relationship if there's really nothing at all going on there? It shouldn't be a problem to just, out of respect, say, hey, you know what, let me just put this social media thing to the side, unfollow, whatever the case may be, respectfully, and that's it. And I think that most healthy people, emotionally healthy people, if they're the friend, the ex being unfollowed, they would understand. You know what I'm saying? They would completely understand. But again, it's tricky because different people feel different ways. There's probably some of you watching right now talking about, that's ridiculous, that's crazy. Why are people so insecure? We can go on and on about this, all right? And again, I will say one more thing, or reiterate one more thing before I move on to the next point. I really feel like you got to remember it's the big picture for this. And because if that relationship is great otherwise, everything is what it needs to be, again, then I'm willing to give benefit of the doubt. But if it's not, then this is just one of the additional things that needs to be corrected. All right, so let's keep this thing moving. And another great sign that a man is over his ex is that he doesn't bring her up and he doesn't compare you to her or the previous relationship, okay? Now, for many, you might say, well, that's a no-brainer. Why, are people really out here just bringing up their ex randomly and comparing them? Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, but yes, it actually happens, okay? Of course, that's not everyone's story, and I'm not even gonna say it's most people's story, but it definitely happens, okay? Um, a lot of people, and I've seen this happen on both sides, weaponize their ex against their current relationship. Whether it be a tactic to try to make them jealous, whether it be just manipulation and trying to take digs at your self-esteem, whether it's payback, maybe they felt hurt by something, so it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna hurt them back by throwing my ex in their face. All kinds of various scenarios that occur where people will use their ex against their current partner. So though it may seem like common sense that someone should not do that, I do think it's worth mentioning that not doing that is at least a good sign that he is not holding on to anything, all right? It helps, because otherwise, if he is engaging in that, there's no reason for me to believe that something isn't still lingering. That's the thing. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, something still lingering doesn't mean necessarily he still wants to be with that woman, but he may not have come to peace about that situation and that woman. You don't want to make the mistake of moving forward without that being properly addressed. Because here's something I feel like I got to mention. And again, this happens on both sides. I've said before that I believe that the majority of marriages involve people, at least one or both, who actually have stronger feelings for someone other than who they married. And that's a tough pill to swallow. People don't like hearing that, but it's a reality, all right? A lot of people, for various reasons, weren't able to get with the person they had the strongest feelings for, but they felt like they had to move on in life and eventually move on to someone else who they have deemed good enough to marry, meaning they possess enough qualities or there's enough logical reasons here to try to be with this person, and they move forward with them. But they still had greater feelings for someone else. And what that does, as far as I'm concerned, is it creates this automatic void or gap. So look at it like this. If you experience someone and you have these very intense feelings, and let's say those feelings are at a level 10, right? But for some reason, things did not work out. And let me also mention that an ex doesn't always mean the last person before you. It could mean 2-3 people before you, 2-3 people ago, right? So sometimes that ex that they're still holding on to was, let's say, someone they dated in college, right? Or a couple years before going to college, whatever the case may be, and they've had a couple girlfriends since then. But it's that one who they have not found peace with, and that still can cause problems in your relationship. But getting back to the point I was going to make, you experience a level 10 of feelings. Doesn't work out for whatever reason, right? Eventually you move along. You feel like you want to settle down, you want to get married. You find someone who you deem, again, has enough qualities to be with, but your intensity of feelings is only a level 7 with them. And so automatically there's a built-in gap of 3 levels of lack of fulfillment, feelings, desire, intensity, something. Now, some people might say, well, that shouldn't be a problem as long as they're willing to commit and do what they're supposed to do. I get you, but when those feelings are not as strong as they've once been for someone, what you find is people have a harder time staying motivated enough to continuously show up in that relationship, the new one, the current marriage, current relationship, whatever, the way that they need to over the long run, all right? Because sometimes what happens is initially they're going super hard in their new relationship because they want to make this work, they want to have somebody, and they see this opportunity. But if there's not real love there, if those genuine feelings, if that connection is not there, that stuff dries up pretty fast. And now things start to fall off a cliff. You know what I'm saying? And again, by that time, if people are married, for some people, the only reason why they're able to stay with each other past that point of realization that it's just not here, that they don't feel that strongly here, is because at that point there's more at play, more at risk. Meaning there might be kids involved now. You know, we live together, we have finances tied together. All these other things is what pretty much, and I hate to say it like this, continues to drag things along. But it's not being fueled by real love and connection. So, going back to the original point, you just want to be mindful and pay attention to, because I kind of feel like we kind of went off, well, I went off track a little bit, the whole comparison thing, all right, and just bringing up that ex, that's a problem. And so let me also say this, if it is being done to weaponize, again, that's still a very unhealthy thing that needs to be addressed and discussed, and you should let your partner know, because we can sit here and say, well, if they do it automatically, leave them alone, be done. It's easier said than done. It doesn't usually work out that way. People usually are hoping that things can change and get better and go in a better direction. So in that attempt to see if this can be resolved, right, let it be known how it makes you feel when he brings that person up, when he makes those comparisons. But then also ask, yo, if you're still doing that, maybe you still got some things you need to heal from here. You know what I'm saying? And let's address that. Or let me know, do you have stronger feelings for that person? I know that would hurt to ask or hear the answer to, but better to find that out and put an end to that situation there than to drag things out longer only to find out later that that was the case and that this was never going to work out the way that you hoped. All right, so we got a couple more to go. And so another great sign that he is over his ex is that he is showing up in the relationship the way that you need him to, okay? So remember I said it's always about the bigger picture. You can't just look at one thing in a lot of cases and go off of that. You have to look at various things and put it all together. And so I've seen scenarios where a woman is concerned about an ex, right? Maybe because, let's just say it's a situation where she knew of the ex, right? Maybe it was an associate of hers or someone that she worked with, right? Now that guy broke up with her, now they're together, but she's still feeling insecure about this ex. Not because he's behaving in any kind of way, but maybe because she's been through that before, right? And so what I encourage someone to do in that situation is like, listen, don't, number one, knowing 100% if he's truly done and over that person, there is no way to know that 100%. I'm giving you signs or helping you evaluate if that's the case, but nothing is 100%. So driving yourself crazy, worrying about something that you cannot 100% prove unless the only 100% is him coming out and saying, yes, I'm not over her, that's what it is, right? Outside of that, there's a level of, I have to just go with what I'm seeing, give the benefit of the doubt, things of that nature. But to me, it's like, why focus on that when the focus should be on, is he showing up the way that he needs to show up? Because again, if he's not, I don't care if he's not over, I don't care if he is over his ex and any woman that he's ever been with. If he ain't being the man that you need him to be, then you don't need to be with him, all right? On the flip side, if he's doing his job, he's meeting those standards you have set, he's pouring into you, he is present, he is showing up as necessary, then it's like it's completely unfair then to hold over his head something like, well, I think you might still be holding on to your ex. Like, why? Why? And you got to ask yourself, if I cannot move past, if I can't allow his good actions to tell me we're good here and he's not holding on to that, then I also have to question, is there something within me? Meaning you have to question, there's something within you that's not allowing you to embrace the good that he is showing you. So again, for some of you, it might be there's things you haven't healed from. For some of you, it might be you're not completely over an ex, right? You got to be willing to explore, is my insecurity in this situation being created by me or by him? Because I always say, listen, I don't like when people just quickly label someone as insecure when in reality they're dealing with a partner who's acting shady. Okay? So if your partner is doing things that clearly would create questioning and skepticism and insecurity in anyone, then the issue isn't your insecurity, it's their behavior, right? But then on the flip side, if they're doing their part and you're still feeling insecure, then don't think, well, if they would just do more of, no. Like there comes a point where this is not about them, this is about you. And you have to do your inner work. You know what I'm saying? And listen, if you are watching this video and trying to determine if he's over his ex, you need to make sure you're over all of yours. All right? Please. Because it's like, before you can concern yourself with him, you got to make sure you're in good standing. Plain and simple. So it's not to let him off the hook. It doesn't mean there may not be potential issues that need to be addressed. I'm just saying, make sure your house is clean before you focus on his. You understand what I'm saying? Be mindful of that. But him showing up the way he needs to, and let me say, in order to properly evaluate him showing up the way that he needs to, that requires you being honest and transparent about what you need from him. So you can't use this when you're not letting him know what is required, what you're looking for. This whole idea that, well, he should know himself. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. Because even if a man loves you, is serious about you, cares about you, whatever, how you like to be loved, how you receive certain actions and words can be different than the next person. So he may love you, but knowing how to love you specifically, he may not possess all of that knowledge. And him figuring that out, listen, he can't read your mind. Some things he will just do and it's gonna work, right? But there's other things where he may miss the mark. And not because he's unwilling, he's just not aware. So you have to be willing to discuss that and be clear about that. And then when there is no excuse because you let him know what the deal is, now it's either he puts up or shuts up, as they say, right? Now it's like, all right, you don't have it. You can't say, well, I didn't know. You did know. I told you. Either you do it or you don't. All right, so I'm going to count these as 2 extra bonuses that I'm going to run through real quick that are great signs that he is over his ex. And the first one is he's actually gone through the healing process. All right, so I think in today's world, society has become at least more open to or more accepting of therapy, coaching, things of that nature, getting assistance, right? And so I think what's good for people to do is have more discussions early on, whether that be asking, hey, have you ever gone to a counselor, or are you open to things like that in general, so that you're aware that, okay, I'm dating someone who, if we have any issues arise, that's an avenue that we can take, right? And so if he, in that conversation, lets you know that, yeah, I've actually gone to therapists before, I've done some inner work, things of that nature, then that, again, it would be a great sign that he has moved past things, that he has found peace. Because I'll tell you what, I want to say the majority, but just to be safe, I'm just going to say a lot. A lot of people who go to coaching or therapy, the source or what drove them there was relationship related, right? And whether someone they were currently dating, an ex, someone that they're heartbroken over, whatever the case may be. That is the catalyst for a lot of people. So when people typically go, that at least to some extent tends to get discussed. Now, I'm not going to say it always gets resolved, okay? But I know it does come up a lot. And so I think though him going or getting counseling is a great sign, I think it's also a great question to ask, what did you learn in that process? You know, what came out in that situation? So that we can discover, okay, what was his previous relationships or how he felt about certain things, was that properly resolved? And again, it's just a good sign, and especially when you add it to the other things I've mentioned, that this man has moved forward. Now, the other bonus I want to mention, regardless of all these signs, you got to trust your intuition. You know, at the end of the day, sometimes what we see, what we hear, doesn't tell us the real story, unfortunately. And we have to go beyond that to gain full clarity as to what's going on here and how we need to move forward. And that clarity can only come through the Spirit. And to me, that is your intuition, that is talking to God, that is going in prayer and receiving that guidance. And again, I think it's not even simply about, is he over his ex? Like that's nothing wrong with you going to God about that, listen to your intuition about that. But I think the main focus should be, is this the right guy for me? Is this the man you should be trying to work with? Is this someone that you can continue to show up for 100% and pour into so that you guys can nurture and have an amazing relationship together? That should be your focus, because again, whether he's over or not over his ex, if he's not the right guy, then there's no point in even dwelling on this, in trying to analyze all these different things. All that matters is either he is the guy or he's not. And if he is, all right, then the next thing is how can we overcome this? And if he's not, let's move on to bigger and better things so you can receive what God has for you. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 things a man needs more than sex to fall deeply for you. But 1, she never initiates. And 2, even when she does have sex with him, she's not really into it like that. So she's like, all right, I'm going to take